welcome back to the Can You Dig It podcast, where we dig down, dig deep, and dig in to the process of self-discovery and personal growth. I'm here with Jessica Rebello from Unleash Potential Life Coaching. Hi, Jessica. And I'm Jordan, coming here from the Center for Alignment. And we're bringing you together 2+ decades of experience in both counseling and coaching to explore the theory, but more importantly, the application of concepts in mental health, emotional awareness, and it is important enough to mention twice because it's what we're all about, personal growth. Today's episode is titled Marching into March. Even though we're recording it the first week of January and we're probably going to release it in February, what was the impetus for this episode, Jessica? Where are we coming from? What the heck are we doing here?
So you and I have been talking a lot about New Year's being a new year and resolutioners who think they're going to take over the world January 1st. The second it comes, we're going to achieve this, and this. Right. And we're here today to talk about if people are doing that, if people are working towards their resolutions, or if they've kind of kicked it out the door and they don't want to work on it anymore. They've given up.
Gotcha. So at this point, right, when we release this, we're going to have people basically in this place of, yeah, I'm committed. I'm doing great. I'm rolling with my resolutions. Or 2 months in, you're at that point where you've realized, yep, I've already given up. Or, you really didn't get started. Or perhaps you're at that point where you really have been good for 6-7 weeks, but now you started falling off. Last week, you only went to the gym twice. You haven't been so great with the diet. Something along those lines. And this episode is meant to recenter you on your path and remind you of that commitment. Something along those lines?
Absolutely. And I think as you and I talk more throughout our episodes and just in life general, we always talk about like making a commitment to the self, right? And like we need to be confirmed and we need to make a stance of like, this is what I'm doing for me and only for me, and it's going to make my life better in X, Y, and Z ways. I think the problem is, and especially with resolutioners, is we want to take on way too much at the same time, right? Like we want a better diet, we want to go to the gym, we want to be better financially, and we want a better relationship with our spouse. And we're trying to do all of that all at once, and it becomes overwhelming. Or we're consistent with parts of it and we're not consistent with other parts in it. So we feel like we're set back, or we feel like we're not doing enough, when in reality it's like, no, you're just doing too much. Like shift the focus a little bit and it would probably be a little bit more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of a particular client I'm working with right now who last year was inundated professionally. Really had no choice but to ground himself in his work life because things were flowing so rapidly for him and the finances were coming in and business was building. Everything he wanted to have happen was happening professionally. Unfortunately, it took a toll on the home life. And he was able to even admit to me and himself that like when he walked in his house, he didn't feel as great as maybe he used to feel. But when he got up to go to work, he would feel this drive, this energy, because there was so much reinforcement there. But because he wasn't spending a lot of time at home, the second he walked into the house, he didn't feel that sense of reinforcement and confidence. If anything, it was, where were you all day? I missed you. You're never around. Or because you're never around, you're not building the own self-assurance and self-confidence in your behavioral habits, your interactions with your kids, the things that need to get done around the house aren't getting done. So you don't feel proud and good about being in the house. So it's twofold. It's inside and outside himself. Didn't feel great about home, loved work. Now work is kind of established. And this year he's like, I'm hitting the ground running with home life. My relationship with myself, my wife, my children, the house itself, we're going to focus really, a lot on that. And I don't know, it's just kind of, it sounds like it relates to a little bit of what you just said, which is, like almost like there's a season for everything. Don't overwhelm yourself, right? Like build the habits when you can and, keep them in place once they're built, but building them is tough. Go easy on it. Trying new things, building new things. It's tough. There's going to be failure. There's going to be quit. There's going to be, at some point or other, you're going to quit and then maybe go back, whether it's a week or two or an hour that you've quit,
Absolutely. And you know the saying, it takes 30 days to make a habit.
Sure.
And I agree with that at parts, but I disagree too because it takes 30 days for something to get part of your routine. Not
Mhm.
even part of a habit yet, right? It's just part of your routine. Because like you're saying, there's gonna be times when you fail at it, or there's gonna be times when you drop the ball and you're like, I'm not going to the gym today because I'm tired and I just don't want to. And I
Right.
was supposed to go 4 days a week, but I only went twice this week, and that's fine. And that is fine. But still, it's like it takes 30 days to get it in part of your routine. And then it probably takes another 60 days on top of that to actually get committed within that habitual routine habit that you are consistent with, that you are driving force with. But you can't do that with 5 different goals at the same time. Like that's overwhelming. That's a lot to take on. Even though the drive is there, even though the want is there, it's still a lot to take on.
Sure. I will, and feel free to disagree with me, but I'm going to edit one thing you said, right? You
Mhm.
said you can't do it with 5 goals at a time. I'm sure there are people who can and who have.
Fair.
There are people who have. There are people who just they feel so strongly about an extreme change in direction in so many areas and they hold themselves accountable to it and they do it. All it takes is organization, discipline, commitment. Like it's not brain surgery, this stuff.
Mhm.
You can schedule it, right? So, all right, I'm going to bring meditation into my life. That's only 10 minutes a day. That's all
Mhm.
you have to come. I'm going to bring exercise into my life. Another 30 minutes. So we're at 40 minutes. What else? Well, I'm going to do
Mhm.
gratitude every day, 2 minutes before bed or before dinner. Now we're at 42 minutes. Like, so we've added 3 things,
Mhm.
3 new habits we want to build, and it's only 42 minutes of our day.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
guess it's, to me, it's much more difficult. Don't get me wrong, to do a lot at a time, but it's certainly possible. You just need the structure, the specificity, exactly what am I doing every day, type
Mhm.
of mentality. Does that fly with you? Does that make sense? You know?
I agree with that. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I think just my part of it or my side of it is more about people who really want to change everything, right? And I think the changes could be scary. Like I'm looking at it through that lens of like change is scary, so to change every single realm is going to feel overwhelming. But yeah, to achieve a few goals at the same time, of course, we could all do it if we're very dedicated. And like you're saying, if we have that structure and we plan it out and we have 2 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that, a half hour of that, any one of us could easily do that. We could
Right.
easily carve out 42 minutes a day. I totally agree with that part.
Okay. So what about the people who, they're trying to change one thing and they just can't? And it's
Mhm.
literally, and it's as simple as, you're just going to start getting up and making your bed because it's time to do something new and commit to a new habit. All you're going
Mhm.
to do is make your bed, or all you're going to do is read 1 page a day in this book just to get consistent with reading for the first time in decades for yourself.
Mhm.
Something, all you're going to do is take a walk today. You're going to take one walk every day. It's just a walk. That's it. It could be, it could be down to the driveway and back, or it could be around the neighborhood. It's up to you. Right.
Mhm.
So what do you think stops if people are able to do it so extreme with so many things?
Mhm.
What stops the person who can't even do that little one thing?
I think it's a change of habit. I think we are creatures of habit, genuinely. And I think when we set a goal so small, like get up and make your bed, right? And you and I are saying it's small, but for some people it feels massive.
Right.
But get up and make your bed. And there's some people, you're right, who can't commit to that. There is something that is limiting them from changing, or there is a something within them that is saying like, if you do this, you're going to change. And that might be really scary, or that might be negative, or that might be bad, right? I think when it comes to like those smaller goals, it is more so of like an internal dialogue within their head of like, you can't do this or you shouldn't do this.
Mm, yeah, and it is that when you said there's something that's limiting them, right? It's not a matter of ability. And I
Mm-mm.
hate to, I don't mean to be a horrible human being, but give the extreme example of like if I had a gun to the head of someone you love, and I said, look, today you're gonna walk a mile, you're gonna meditate, you're gonna do gratitude, you're gonna eat healthy, and you know what I mean? And you're going to make your bed.
Mhm.
They would easily be able to do all those things.
100%.
So it's not a matter of ability. It's a matter of comfort ability. It's a matter of the brain telling you like, no, we're comfortable doing it this way. Don't do that. We're going to do it this. We're going to do it our way, this way. We're comfortable doing it this way. You know, and to me, it's like if you're at that point where it's that difficult for you to change one thing like that, and this is just my opinion and my experience with myself and clients, you've been resisting change for quite some time, if that's the case.
Absolutely.
In different areas.
Absolutely. It does. And I think when you're saying with ability, right? Like, of course we have the ability. It's the same thing with time, right? When people say, I have no time to practice self-care. And I hear that a lot of times. I'm like, what do you mean you have no time? You don't have 2 minutes? While you're in the shower, that time's already carved out. I use the shower a lot. Bless you. Right. While you're in the shower, you can't put on a meditation while you're showering. 2 birds, 1 stone. Like, we can't do that, right? Like, it's not ability. It's not time, because we all have that. It's the change. It's the change aspect. What does this mean if I change this one piece of my world, or one thing about myself, or whatever it might be?
Right. And what is so threatening about that? That we're resistant to something we know is a good thing. Objectively, it's the right thing to do. We know this. But the feeling is everything but.
Exactly. And it goes into changing the narrative too then. Right? If our personal narrative is nothing's working out for me, I'm still in the same, mundane world, and this is just the way it is. And like, you're feeding the narrative by not changing.
Right.
By changing and making the bed or listening to the meditation or whatever the goal might be, you're changing the narrative at the same time. And some people identify by that narrative. So if that narrative gets changed, what are they going to do?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's that identity is something you've clung to for so long. You're not going to let go readily. Again, even if it's the right thing to do, and you've asked 100 people, and including yourself, everyone agrees, right? 100% of people agree. It is the right thing to do. You may not change if you're used to blaming everybody else and being angry at others and having that kind of a victimized mentality of life.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's always out to get me, or, oh, there goes life again. There goes God screwing me over again. I mean, that's, I know people who think that way. I can't blame them for thinking that way. Some of them, I've heard their life stories, and man, I've been through some stuff, but compared to others, it's nothing. I can't blame them. However, for every example of someone who's been through a lot that thinks like that, I can probably show you and find you several examples of someone who's been through worse, who decided to create better. And that's, so, everything is relative. So when we go back to this ability to do it, anyone, based on your life experiences, anybody can do it. So what's stopping you from really trying, or what's stopping you from committing? Maybe you are trying, but where is that daily workout? I guess to go back to like the first thing we brought up, specifying, what is it exactly you need to be doing, either daily or 5 days a week, 4 days a week? What do you need to be tracking? What do you need to truly be accountable to know that you are walking this path of, all right, I've stayed committed to my growth. In such and such direction.
A thought just came to mind when you were saying that. I know, scary. People who have resolutions, right? And I'm not a huge resolution person. Like, I'm not like, New Year's morning, I'm waking up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Like, this year I'm doing this. It's just, that's not my personality. I wonder if so many people get caught in their own way because they're putting this pressure on this New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is a New Year's resolution? What, the first of the new year, we're deciding to say, today's the day I'm going to make my life better? Like, what about the other 365 days of the year? Why do we need this one day to like really motivate the change? And I'm wondering if that's getting in the way of some people's success with things.
Oh, totally. Oh, that pressure factor.
Yeah.
Like, I have to do this versus, no, I have the freedom to choose every single day. So what do I choose today?
Exactly. Like if we're changing the language a little bit, I wonder if that would allow us to be a little bit more successful. Like just how you phrase it, like, what am I willing to do today? Like keep it in the one day, keep it small.
It's,
I
it's
don't know.
interesting.
Sounds like it would be a little bit more helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting you say that. I had an example with a client yesterday, actually. And I told him I was going to probably bring it up in either the podcast or I was going to put it on Instagram or something. And he gave me permission. But what it was he said something along the lines of, he was telling me a story and then said, I'm curious to see how I respond to this. That's what he said. And I said, I'm going to stop you. Stop. Let's look at that. I want to look at what you just said. How much power are you giving to external circumstance when you say that? Versus, regardless of what happens, here's how I'm going to choose to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at it. And we looked at the difference. And we looked at how far his awareness and thought process and belief system had come since I met him. When I first met him, it was, the world is out to get me. Oh God, I know how I'm going to react to this. I'm just, there goes my week. There goes my day.
Mm-hmm.
So it has changed a lot. I'm curious to see how I respond to this, which means I'm open. There's new. If it could go in any direction,
oh, yeah.
Which is great. Everything is relative. If that's what unconsciously came out of him, knowing where he was when I met him, that is intense amounts of growth, But to get to so as I say to my clients, eventually it's time to level up.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a moment for him to see, like, all right, that's where we're at now. If you're going to level up, this is where we're going to get. And this is what that thought process needs to become. So again, it's changing that narrative, changing how you choose to see it, empowering oneself, empowering yourself to see it.
So it's the ability to change perspective, or the ability to change the narrative, or to change how you're viewing it, or what have you, right? And you used a word when you're explaining your session with that client, is curiosity. I love when people are curious, right? Like I love when we're curious about ourselves or about others, of like, well, how would I, or how could I, right? Like curiosity is not judgmental typically.
Right.
And it's leaving us room to explore further, right? It's not like this is what it is, period. No, curiosity leaves you a lot of wiggle room to level up, like you're saying. That I think if we all took a more curious approach, even if it came down to the goals that we wanted to achieve, right? Like curious of why we're not being as successful as maybe we thought we wanted to be, or curious about what's limiting us from getting there, right? I think if we all took more of just a curious approach, it would be a better situation.
And that's something that, as you talk about that, it makes me think about the transition we made from, being in a group practice counseling together to coaching. And if I was in a group practice, utilizing the license in mental health counseling, going through insurance, sitting on the couch, doing the counseling, the comfort zone I got into with counseling was, if they were curious about how they're responding to something, we would explore the hell out of it. We would explore the shit out of it. Probably a whole session, maybe 2 or 3. As opposed to now, we would explore it for maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then all the exploration, I would remind the client, look, all the exploration in the world isn't going to create the change. So what do we need to do? What is it that's getting in the way? You understand the problem. Now, like, let's work towards solving it, as opposed to simplifying it and understanding it for days and days and days and days, which can be an act of avoidance, maybe unconsciously, we're not aware of that it is one, but it can be an act of avoidance, analysis paralysis, as we like to call it. So, I don't know, it made me think of that, because we do have the ability to change. We all have the ability to wake up tomorrow and be the version of ourselves we always dreamed we could be. It reminds me of, I think it's not Groundhog Day, it's Scrooged with Bill Murray. You ever see that Christmas movie where he he loses it at the end, and he's like, but it's like this powerful, positive, motivational talk that he's giving to the camera. And he says something along the lines of, like, for one day out of the year, we get to be the person we always dreamed we could be. Well, I have goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's Like on Christmas Day, who doesn't wake up and feel like good? Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people who do. Let me rephrase that. But there's so many people, so many who wake up on that day, or let's use New Year's Day too.
Mhm.
They chose to believe in that day, and that
Mhm.
belief in that one day, for a new beginning or a fresh start,
Mhm. Mhm.
is what breeds the belief in them to get the motivation to go, to try something
Yeah.
new, to commit to a new habit, to be healthy, et cetera, et cetera. The problem
And I
is
guess
that there's no Christmas Day in February and then March, and that to remind you and feed that. There's no New Year's Day again. So that's where I would say to you, what are you setting up for yourself? How are you setting yourself up for success?
I wonder if it's like a power of numbers thing in that example, right? It's like Christmas morning. You're right. There's a large amount of people that wake up Christmas morning super excited to go down, spend time with family, open gifts, and do the whole Christmas experience. And the same thing with New Year's. But I wonder if there's a power in numbers of like, well, since so many other people are doing this, it's more comfortable for me to sit in that
Mm.
mindset or that zone because that would make sense. If there's a fire ignited under you on these 2 days that you and I are giving as an example, on those days, then that means that fire could be lit every other day of the year. We're choosing to only light it those 2 days. So, like, there's a limiting belief in that, right? And we could label that and we know that. But is that because there's power in numbers that, like, most of the world is also doing the same thing on those 2 days? Or, like, what's behind it?
Belief feeds action for sure.
Mhm.
Belief feeds action. And that is when I would question someone and say, what are you doing to feed your belief?
Mhm.
There are some people who have the willpower to just take action and stay committed, regardless of their feeling, regardless of belief, regardless of anything else. But the average person needs the motivation, something consistent.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
why we started our groups, right? Where we're terrible at plugging, by the way. Plugging the group, chain breakers, we even talked about plugging ourselves more. Oh God.
We'll do a shout out at the end.
Yeah, I totally forgot. Gosh, I should go plug myself, mother pluggers. But like the plug for the group, Chain Breakers, I mean, that was one of the primary reasons we started that group, is to give people a
Mhm.
recentering point every week, to feed their fire, to remind them to fan the flame, to do the fanning for them. We're starting
Mhm.
our first group tonight, and I was telling you yesterday, like, I'm going to lose my shit tonight. I know it. I am excited to scream, not in a bad way, not at anyone, but for everyone.
Mhm.
Like the way I'm talking right now, like there's no reason any of us should be settling for less than the
Mhm.
amazingness we all deserve.
Mhm.
Like you wanted to grab your life by the short hairs, for lack of a better word, and you wanted to, and you did, and you outfitted a bus, and you're working remotely, and you built a successful coaching practice where you're making plenty of money, and I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. You're able
Appreciate
to
you.
travel at will. What a cool thing that you can say you've done and are still in the
Mhm.
midst of, like, really solidifying, right? Because it's still
Mhm.
happening, but you're also enjoying it a lot too. And I'm
Yeah.
in that space where I'm transitioning, and it's so powerful. It's so enjoyable. Do I have my moments where I'm down? Of course. Do I need
Mhm.
reminders? Do we feed each other, belief
Mhm.
and motivation? Do we use each other for accountability? Hell yeah, we do.
Mhm.
Hell yeah.
I think for people watching this, right? And I think for people who are like sitting within their own world and saying, all right, we're marching into March here, and I didn't achieve the things that I thought I was going to achieve at this point in time. I think something that's a really valuable lesson that they should know is what you're saying, right? Like, we all deserve better than just being content with our world, right? Like, content, and I'm sure I went on this tangent with you before, is like, content is not a goal. We don't need to be content. We don't stop at content. We all deserve more than just being content. And I understand that happy is not a goal either, but like, feeling fulfilled, and like that's always what I use for myself. Of like, am I feeling fulfilled today? Is this making me feel fulfilled? Feeling fulfilled in your own world and creating it and recreating it and then recreating it another time to be exactly what you need it to be. is the best feeling out there. And even though it could be scary, and even though it's change, and even though your stomach is in knots because it feels so uncomfortable because you don't want to go on that walk for a mile, and you don't want to make your bed because you don't really give a shit if the bed's made or not. You don't want to make it, but you're going to make it anyway because you know that's a good thing to do. You know it's going to make you feel better. It's like, just keep going, just keep pushing, and like, find someone to hold you accountable. If you don't want to join our group, find someone in your world to hold you accountable, or find someone to give you that flame. And beyond that, give it to yourself. And if you can't, you reach out for help.
I was thinking that the whole time, give it to yourself. That's self-talk is so important. And,
Mhm.
we mentioned it earlier, going easy on yourself, but there's a balance with that too. Sometimes
Oh, yeah.
get tough on yourself sometimes. Get in
Mhm.
that mirror and give yourself a pep talk. Don't put yourself down, right? Don't be the coach. Don't be who you're unconsciously being in your head with like critique and judgment. Don't be that coach. Nobody
No,
likes that coach.
no.
Be positive. And if you're having trouble doing it, find a positive coach and ask them to record some things for you. I've
Mhm.
had clients do that with me. I've had people call me and say, "Look, I only have like 300 total dollars I can spend." And I'll say, "Okay, so that'll get you a couple sessions with me. So what would you like to do?
Mhm.
What are you looking to get from it?" And I say, "All right, this is how I feel like we can pull the most out of it."
Mhm.
And I recommend we record it so that they have it
Oh,
forever.
yeah.
They
Oh, yeah.
have it forever. And it can be powerful. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it back to marching into March because I totally forgot what we were talking about. But
Of course you did.
very, very smart guy. Um, I think, it is time we have to start slowing down. We've been on here about half an hour, I would imagine. The, the plugs, uh, it's it's something that we do need to get better at. Let's just put it that way. Unleashedpotentiallifecoaching.com, right? www.unleashedpotentiallifecoaching.com. Check out the website. You can contact Jessica from there. You can contact Ron, her coach and partner. You can contact Shay, who also works with her. You can also go to my website, the center or the THE Center Mentor.com. www.thecentermentor.com. Find me on Instagram at centermentor.com. I'm posting positive, or not .com, at Center Mentor, I should say. Posting positivity, insight. I'm dropping freestyle raps. I'm all over the place, but all of it is related to self-awareness, personal growth, self-discovery, self-actualization would be the umbrella.
Do you want to give a quick shout out of the typical type of client you work with? Just so if someone's listening, they know to call you.
Okay. The typical client I work with is they've tried a lot of things. Nothing seems to be working. They don't know what else to do. So let's say they've been in counseling for anxiety for years and they still keep getting it and they're tired of going through the same patterns. They've been depressed on and off for years. They're tired of coming out of it, going back into it, coming out of it, going back into it. They're not sure why. They can't seem to solidify the changes that they want to make for themselves. There's the quarter life crisis client. I have a lot of clients in their young to mid 20s,
Mhm.
males and females. That seems to be a big one. This generation, these new generations coming up, they seem to require more meaning.
Mhm.
And, it's something that we need to own. It's something we need to own and work with. And because everybody does have talents and gifts they can give to the world, everybody, you
Mhm.
know? So I'll give you those three. Thanks for asking.
Okay. You're welcome.
How
We'll
about
take
you?
them. So I typically work with people turning pain into power. I come at it with a trauma-informed approach. So I work with a lot of people who have experienced various traumas within their world.
Yeah.
And like you, I work with a lot of like the younger pop with, 20 to 25 range, a lot of younger ones too. Just helping them navigate their way through the world because I think it's also a really confusing time for that generation. So kind of giving them a voice and how to use that voice and what to do with it
Mm,
is really helpful. And also just like, turning the negative behaviors that we've been doing forever, kind of rewriting that personal narrative and how to make action steps to change it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
we're finishing up. I one final thought I'd like to share is, if you're that person that doesn't have a burning desire to change, the motivation, like it's there, but it's not there. Like, you need to, but you just can't get yourself to do it. I would imagine that most of your day is scheduled around avoiding yourself. There's noise, there's distraction, the TV is on, there's this, the music is on, the phone is in your hand. What would happen is if you literally stopped for 10, 15 minutes and walked up to the mirror every day. That worked for me for a long time to get myself to change. I would have just an honest conversation with myself in the mirror. And I had to stop avoiding myself, because once I saw all the stuff that I knew I needed to work on consistently, wasn't beating myself up for it. I was just flashing it in my awareness. That's it.
Hmm.
Making sure I was aware of it. That's all. No judgment, just here it is. What would you like to do with it?
Hmm.
It changed a lot for me. That burning desire grew. The need to change really, really grew. And I've been more consistent than ever in my life right now with
Good.
creating what's flowing through me, and staying committed to it even when I don't want to. So,
Good advice. Really good advice.
yeah. All right, guys. It, as always, has been a pleasure. Jessica, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything, as always.
Thank you
We'll
too.
we will talk to y'all soon. Take care now.